What is going on, football fans? Back at it with another New York Giants video. Figured I'd give you guys a little bit longer of a podcast today, being that there's some really good topics to talk about for the New York Giants and the fact that we're off to a very good start at 4-1 overall. A couple of things I want to let you guys know. I've seen your comments in the comments below. I am working on upgrading a lot of the things on the channel. I'm actually going to a store today on my day off after this to get a much better microphone. I also am probably going to get rid of the green screen outside of when I do live streams because I have a better camera, but it does not work well with the live stream. So if the look in the background doesn't look the best, that's the reasoning why I'm trying to upgrade. I want to upgrade the video quality. I want to upgrade the audio quality, and we'll work on an office look as we go along. So those are going to be some adjustments you're going to see on the channel in the coming days. So looking forward to that. And just listen to some of the recommendations that I've seen in the comments below. And I think they're great ones. So the audio quality should be better, hopefully starting by tomorrow. I'm going to look at a couple of microphones that were recommended to me. But in this video, I want to talk about a couple of things. I want to talk about the Matt Rhule news that came out regarding the New York Giants and what I think, how the New York Giants dodged a bullet with that. But the more important things that I really want to talk about in this video is what the New York Giants have done thus far. Is it sustainable? And by sustainable, I don't mean that we're going to win every game or that we're going to win 4 out of every 5 games, but is this New York Giants team for real? You know, I think a lot of people, myself included, were reluctant to start to really believe in this football team that they could win 10, 11 games, make the playoffs. And now they've started to beat some legitimate football teams, right? They beat the Tennessee Titans, who were the number 1 seed in the AFC last year. I understand they're not quite the same team. They lost A.J. Brown. They beat the Green Bay Packers, who were the number 1 seed in the NFC last year, who I also understand are not quite the same team they were last year. They lost Davante Adams. But I think we could all agree that those are at least good football teams that the New York Giants have knocked off. It's not the Chicago Bears. It's not the Carolina Panthers. And the New York Giants are off to a 4-1 start. It's the best start they've been off to since 2010. And in this video, I'll talk about some of the reasoning as to why I think that is, the most probable reasons why we're off to a 4-1 start. But it's a great start for this team regardless. I think we all need to realize in the back of our minds, we need to put it there. I know we're all fans. I know we're all reactionary. I'm one of you guys. Right now, I'm on the sky. I'm on the clouds right now. I can't wait to see where this season takes us. I hope we win every game we play. But I think we still need to realize that this team is not the most talented team. They've done this while overcoming a lot of injuries on this team, and that speaks to the players on this team, and that speaks to the coaching staff. But I think we still need to realize that we're in the beginning stage of a rebuild. And that makes it even more encouraging that we're way ahead of schedule right now with this football team. But if this team regresses a bit, we also have to understand that's okay. This team is trending in the right direction. They're getting better week over week over week. And you're seeing improvement on a number of the players on this football team. We're going to talk about Daniel Jones in this video. We're going to talk about Dexter Lawrence in this video. We're going to talk about a ton of players throughout the coming weeks that have improved. But Dexter Lawrence has become a different player. You look what they've done with O'Shane Ximines in the limited sample size that we saw, what they've done with Jahad Ward on the defensive side. Somehow what they've been able to manage with the cornerbacks with all the injuries that they've had, which was a huge worry going into the year. And you look at all the injuries we've had. Kayvon Thibodeau's missed 2 games. Leonard Williams has missed 3.5 games. Adoree Jackson missed a half last week with Aaron Rodgers at quarterback. We were somehow able to get it done. On the offensive side, Kadarius Toney's barely played at all. The same can be said for Wan'Dale Robinson. Kenny Galladay's been non-existent. And somehow we're finding ways to win football games. And the main reason is coaching, the adjustments. Last week you saw it again against the Green Bay Packers. Yesterday, I should say. The adjustments that Wink was able to make at halftime. We didn't give up a point to Aaron Rodgers in the second half. We gave them 2 points at the end with the safety, but we were able to keep Aaron Rodgers and that Green Bay offense in check after they completely destroyed us in the first half, and that had to do with the adjustments that Wink made. It also had to do with the adjustments the offense made. The offense definitely showed glimpses throughout that first half of starting to get it together, but in the second half, they really hit home with the time of possession. They possessed the ball for over 15 minutes on their first 2 drives in that game. And we'll dive further into where we rank in the time of possession and how improved we are in that department throughout this video. But you think about that. On their first 2 drives, the New York Giants possessed the ball for more than a quarter's length of a football game. And that in itself is the best defense going up against a quarterback like Aaron Rodgers. So the halftime adjustments were great. The New York Giants got the job done. Daniel Jones, for what he was provided with, was incredible. We'll talk more about Daniel Jones in this video and whether or not he's at least trending towards getting another year with the New York Giants. But first, let's just briefly talk about the news that came out about Matt Rule. The reason I want to talk about that, he was a coach that a lot of New York Giants fans wanted. He was a coach that was on the top of our wish list, myself included, when the Giants were going through that coaching search. Now, of course, none of those coaches have seemed to work out outside of Mike McCarthy, who was put in a really good situation with the Dallas Cowboys. But I want to talk about why I think the New York Giants really dodged a bullet when it came to Matt Rule. This is coming out from Ian Rappaport. The Panthers have fired Matt Rule. Not much more to it than that. Matt Rule, of course, was there for now, a little over 2 years. He signed the same year that we signed Joe Judge. The difference was the reason the New York Giants did not ultimately sign Matt Rule, at least from what came out, because there was interest, was the fact that he was demanding a 7-year contract. Apparently, he really wanted the Giants job. The Panthers offered him 7 years. They have the richest owner in the league with Tepper. They offered him a 7-year contract. He then came to the Giants the day before he was supposed to visit them and say, hey, listen, if you give me a 7-year deal, I will come to the New York Giants. Eventually, Mara said, I'm going to pass. I'm not going to give you that 7-year deal. I'll let you sign with the Panthers. And we elected to go with Joe Judge. This is not to defend Joe Judge. Joe Judge was a disaster. We rightfully moved on after 2 years. We now have a much better head coach in place. But if the New York Giants went the route of giving Matt Rule a 7-year deal, do you honestly in your heart believe that the New York Giants would have moved on from him after 2 years? I'm going to say no. I think Mara would have stuck with him for another year. And if he would have stuck with him for another year, not only would Brian Daboll not be your head coach, it is more than likely that Joe Schoen would not be your GM. The fact is that he wouldn't be able to pick his head coach, right, if Matt Rule was going to stay on for another year. So I think the New York Giants dodged a major bullet by not going with Matt Rule. And, maybe we got a little bit lucky, the fact that he was demanding 7 years. Who knows? But I'm glad that John Mara elected not to do that, because I think we could all agree that we're very happy with the tandem we have in place right now with the 4-1 New York Giants. Now, I want to touch a little bit on the time of possession, and then we'll get into whether or not this is sustainable and where this team could be headed this year. This, to me, is arguably the biggest reason why the New York Giants have been as successful as they've been. Obviously, coaching, right? But the ability to be able to possess the ball helps out all facets of this team, the offense, the defense, everything else. And yesterday, they did a great job in terms of third down conversions as well that we'll dive into. But the Giants right now rank 6th in the entire National Football League in time of possession. And this has only gotten better week over week. Right now, we're possessing the ball 31 minutes and 7 seconds, which is 6th in the league. The last time the Giants ranked that high, you got to go all the way back to 2010. 2010. You're talking like 13 years. The last time that we were ranked that high in terms of time of possession. You look over the last 5 or 6 years, we haven't been higher than like 26th. So that is a huge, huge difference maker. The reason why we're that high, well, it goes on both sides of the ball. We've done a better job, especially in recent weeks, in terms of possessing the ball longer, having longer drives on offense, and we've done great all year in terms of third down defense. We were second going into this week. I think we now rank 6th, which is still near tops in the league, and the Giants have been able to stay fresh on that defensive side of the ball, and we've been able to close out games because of it. So the Giants continue to do really good in that department, and that, I think, has as much to do with our success as anything else in terms of statistics that you may be looking at. The Giants have done a great job in that department in terms of the time of possession. Whether or not this is sustainable, listen, I'm trying to remain as even keel as I possibly can. The Giants right now are 4-1. It's impossible for me not to raise my preseason expectations. It's impossible. I had us at 7-10. For us to hit that mark right now, the Giants would have to go 3-9. And is that possible that could happen over the last 9 games? Sure, it's possible. We have a lot of injuries right now. Who knows if Adoree Jackson's coming back? Who knows if teams are going to make adjustments against this football team? But I look at this schedule, and do I see 3-9? I do not, especially after what we've seen. And I told you guys going into the year that I thought this Giants team was going to get significantly better over the second half of the year. Again, I don't know what this team's going to look like in the second half. I don't know if we're going to get some of these guys back in terms of health. I definitely didn't think we'd look this good through the first 5 games. I'll tell you that right now. And you have to only figure that guys like Evan Neal are going to get better. You have to figure that Daniel Jones is only going to get more familiar within this offense. Same thing can be said on the defensive side of the ball. We have to remember they're learning 2 different schemes. So, I'm not going to go as far to say that I think winning 4 out of every 5 games is sustainable. I definitely think playoffs are a possibility. 83% of the time when you start 4-1, you make the playoffs. Now, we may not make the playoffs. Okay, this could be a fairy tale, but we've beaten some pretty good teams. And when you look at this schedule, Baltimore, at Jacksonville, at Seattle. Okay, I look at that. Baltimore, we're a 5.5-point dog. Baltimore's a good team. We may very well lose that game. We're traveling back from London. Do I look at it and say that's a game we can't win? No. I think we could, especially after we beat Green Bay. Wink obviously has familiarity with Lamar Jackson, but that's obviously one of our more challenging games on our schedule. You look at Jacksonville. Jacksonville's been up and down. It's in Jacksonville. We'll see, but I definitely think that's a game we could clearly win. We've beaten two better teams than them with Tennessee and Green Bay. Jacksonville looked horrible this week. At Seattle, I know they've looked pretty good. They've put up points, but they haven't beaten anybody good. I still don't think that's a very good football team. I realize Seattle's a tough environment, a tough place to play, but you have to figure we could at least split one of those two games. Then you have the bye. Then you've got Houston at home. That's a game we absolutely have to win. And then you got Detroit, who their offenses look good outside of yesterday where they got shut out, but their defense has been horrible. They're 1-4. Why shouldn't we beat that team at home? So I look at those games, those four games. I see no reason why we can't win 3 out of those 4. The Ravens game, let's say it's an L, but at that point, they're already at 7 games with 2 games still remaining against the Washington football team. You have a game against Dallas. You have 2 games against the Eagles, Minnesota, who's pretty good, the Colts, who have not looked nearly as good. So do I see 10 wins right now? Yeah, I could certainly see the Giants winning 10 games. I'm not even going to go as far to say that I'm predicting it right now, but are you crazy right now if you're a Giants fan to think that we could win 10 games? No. Why can't we go 6-6 with that schedule, the way that this team has played thus far? And we'll see if it can continue. I certainly haven't expected this, but I do think this team is going to be a better team, and they may not have quite as good of a record than they are right now in the second half. I think Jones is going to look better. I think the offensive line is going to look better. I think the defense is going to look better, especially as we start to get guys back, right, with all these injuries that we've had. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what this team could look like in the second half. And if your question is in terms of being sustainable, are we a playoff team? I would say yes. I would say right now, Chris, if somebody asked me today, Chris, do you think this team is going to make the playoffs this year? If 9 or 10 wins gets us in the playoffs, I would tell you yes. That's where I'm leaning right now. And I know it may sound crazy to many people right now about this New York Giants football team based off what our preseason expectations were. But you got to take it week by week. And after 5 weeks, the way this team has looked, yes, it is reasonable to think that the New York Giants, in a conference that doesn't have a lot of elite teams, in a conference where 7 teams make the playoffs, has a legitimate chance to be a playoff team. There's no doubt about it. This team is much better than we thought they were, or many thought that we were going into the year. And a lot of that has to do with Daniel Jones. A lot of people talk about Daniel Jones' stats. Well, I want to show you guys some important stats. You know, people ask me coming into the year, what does Daniel Jones need to do statistically to keep his job, to stay on? First thing I said, most important thing is winning. And that's not all entirely in his control. I say it all the time, winning is not a quarterback stat, it's a team stat. But I thought he needed to win because he had to win at least 9 games. That's what I said continuously, regardless of what his stats were going into the year, because he needed to put the Giants in a position where they were not high in the draft to take a quarterback. And they felt like they could continue to build this football team. By no means do I think Jones is going to get a 5-year extension at the end of the year. But do I think he's at least trending towards getting a 1 or 2 year commitment from the Giants at the end of this year if the Giants continue at this pace and Daniel Jones continues to do what he's been doing? Yes, I think that it is very much possible that he could be back with the New York Giants next year and the Giants see what they could build with him. And we'll get into some of the quotes that Brian Daboll had to say about his quarterback, so on and so forth. But a lot of people look at touchdown passes. Touchdown passes to me are relying on a lot of things. One is pace of play. If your defense is giving up a lot of points, you're playing catch-up ball, you're going to put up more points, kind of like what Jared Goff is doing with the Detroit Lions, but they're losing football games. The Giants' offensive strategy with Daniel Jones, because of some of the limitations of this offense overall, the lack of wide receivers, nobody's out there, the fact that Saquon Barkley is the best weapon right now in this offense, and the fact that everybody's learning a new scheme, is to try to chew up clock like they've been doing, rely on the ground attack, and be big in terms of situational football, third down conversions, game-winning drives. These are important stats to me when it comes to a guy that I view as a guy that I could build with, at least. I'm not saying he's quite yet a franchise quarterback, but a guy that I could build with. This is what I came up with. And then I saw CBS Sports posted something similar. Daniel Jones, before this year, only won 2 games when trailing at the half throughout the entirety of his career, 2019 to 2021. 2 games when he trailed at halftime. And he only had 3 career game-winning drives in those 3 years. He has matched both of those stats this year with Brian Daboll as his head coach in this offense. In 5 games with Daboll, he has 2 games he has won when trailing at halftime, which is as many as he had through 3 years. And he was trailing by 10 points in both of those games against good football teams, the Titans and the Packers. And he's had 3 game-winning drives. Those are important stats. Those are what I look at when I'm judging whether or not a guy could be a quarterback that I could build with. And I need to see Daniel Jones continue to do that. So far this year, Daniel Jones has been consistent. And a lot of people joke and say, oh, consistently, he's throwing 190 yards. Daniel Jones has put the team on his back. This past week, offensively, he put the team on his back. Saquon Barkley wasn't out there for the most important drive of that football game, in which the New York Giants had to go 92 yards. He was without his first, second, third, and fourth wide receiver options. He drove them down the field. Don't care that he didn't throw a touchdown. He drove them down the field. He had a game-winning drive week 1 against Tennessee. He had a game-winning drive week 2. Yes, I realize that he missed wide receivers. He looked far from perfect. But when the game called, when he needed to come up big, he did. And he's had some big moments within each of these games. He has not turned the ball over. He has not had turnover-worthy plays for the most part all year. Outside of the first week or two, he had a couple of really shaky throws. And we'll see if he can keep this up. But thus far, he's looked good. And the other encouraging thing for Daniel Jones is this offensive line had their best performance this week in terms of pass protection. And I expect that to grow. I expect that to get better. Are there going to be weeks where they struggle? Yes. We have a young right tackle. We still have a lot of improvements that are needed from within the interior. But as Evan Neal improves and gets better, this offensive line is going to get better this year. And I think he will. So I'm looking forward to that. In terms of some other things, this was a huge stat in yesterday's game, and it really goes to show just how good of a job Daniel Jones did. Coming into today, the Packers' third down defense surrendered only 10 first downs out of 42 third down opportunities through the first 4 games. So they only surrendered 10 first downs on third down. Yesterday against Jones, the Giants converted 6 of 11 of their third down conversions. Jones did this 2 times with his legs, I believe, and it's really 6 out of 10 because one of those was when the New York Giants intentionally, took the safety at the end of the game. And most of that was because of Daniel Jones and some of the throws he made. You go back and think about the 3rd and 13 throw to Richie James. I think he converted another big 3rd and 9 or 3rd and 10 to Slayton near the goal line. So he had a lot of huge third down conversions against the team who had the best third down defense by a wide margin in the NFL going into that game. Going into that game, they only surrendered a first down on third down. I think it was 23% of the time. Yesterday, we were 60%. So those are important stats when it comes to Daniel Jones for me. I've seen growth. And right now, if you ask me, Chris, I'm not telling you definitely, much like the record, much like my expectations for this team, I'm not going to dive head first and say, this team's going to win 12 games, this team's going to the playoffs. I'm also not going to dive head first and say Daniel Jones 100% is the quarterback of the future for this New York Giants football team. But if you ask me today, Chris, is Daniel Jones trending towards being the quarterback for the New York Giants in 2023, I would tell you, hell yeah, he is. Hell yeah, he is. Because right now the New York Giants are trending towards being a playoff team. He's going to put us in a spot where we're not going to be picking very high to draft a quarterback. And he's going to prove to be good enough to build around at least for another year to see if he could grow as a quarterback if you could add more pieces around him, a la wide receiver. A couple of wide receivers, because right now Wan'Dale Robinson and Kadarius Toney have not been able to prove to stay on the field, and I think we could all agree that Kenny Golladay is not going to be a part of the future of this team. We'll see if they bring Saquon Barkley back. That'll be another topic of discussion at the end of the year. But yes, right now, I do think the Giants are trending towards being a playoff team, and I do think that Daniel Jones is trending towards being the quarterback in 2023. Those are my honest opinions. These are some quotes coming out from Brian Daboll. And one thing I'll say about Daboll, and one thing I'll say about Shane, since the start of the year, they have been a man of their word. They have not talked nonsense. Usually what they say is what they believe. I thought Jones had an excellent game, and he's had a few of those. Maybe his stats don't reflect it, but he's led this team down to wins. He's played good at crunch time, coming back from a little bit of an ankle. Didn't even mention that, the injury that he was playing with. Daboll told reporters, I give credit to all the guys and all the coaches. Just a good group to work with. Then he went to say this. He's very humble. I think it's very important to him. He has very good leadership amongst the team. Players got a lot of respect for him. I know the coaches do too. We have confidence in him, Daboll said. He's done a really good job for our football team, and the things that we have asked him to do, he's done them well. I'm glad he's our quarterback. So what does that tell me? That tells me right now, Daniel Jones is trending towards coming back in 2023. And right now, so far this year, we have not seen this version of Daniel Jones since he's been a New York Giant, at least on a consistent basis. And a lot of that has to do with the help around him. The most important help, Mike Kafka and Brian Daboll. Because I think we could all agree, outside of Saquon Barkley, who he's not really had throughout the entirety of his career, When I say that, I mean in his first year, Saquon Barkley got hurt in his first start against Tampa Bay, wasn't really himself for the last 3 games. The next year, Saquon Barkley tore his ACL week 2 in like the first quarter. And last year, we all could agree that Saquon Barkley was not mentally himself. So for the first time in his career, he's had a real, true weapon with Saquon Barkley. That has certainly helped as well. But a lot of it goes to Kafka, and a lot of it goes to Dable for putting him in the right situation, for the play calling, for giving him opportunities to be successful in the NFL. Coaching goes a long way. And so far, it's gone a long way for Daniel Jones, and it's gone a long way for the New York Giants. As always, guys, if you like what you watch, please subscribe, drop a comment, maybe give me a little thumbs up. Cheers.